They are the two computer whiz kids who changed the world as we know it.
Larry and Sergey always had this kind of irreverence as part of their attitude, which is what made them so creative.
These two founders really think of themselves as noblemen. They think that what they're doing is good for the world.
Larry Page and Sergey Brin were the kind of guys who kept Bill Gates up at night. Journalist Ken Auletta.
I said, Mr. Gates, what is your nightmare? And I thought he would say Apple or Netscape or Oracle. And he said, I'll tell you what I worry about. I worry about some guy in a garage inventing a new technology Microsoft has never thought about. Well, in '98, two guys were in a garage, and they hand-lettered sign, and it said, Google Worldwide Headquarters.
In an industry where innovation is just part of the job description, Larry Page and Sergey Brin have become virtual masters of the universe of information gathering. What we don't know, we Google.
629,000 results. Wow. And all this time I thought Googling yourself meant the other thing.
Not anymore. Silicon Valley is littered with startups that have stalled out. Why these two computer science geeks succeeded may have a lot to do with the nearly parallel lives they led before creating together one of the world's largest and most powerful companies. Brin and Page respectfully declined to participate in this program. Sergey Brin was born in the Soviet Union in 1973. His parents were mathematicians and Jewish, which limited their career opportunities. Mark Malseed is the co-author of The Google Story.
So Sergey's father went to a conference in Warsaw, met a whole bunch of colleagues from the West, saw what life was like outside the Soviet Union, came back, sat the family down and said, we have to leave.
His parents brought with them a sense of purpose they instilled in their son. It boiled down to a simple message.
Don't come back with a B. Don't come back with the second place award. Make it first, always. And Sergey internalized this, and it did form a core part of his personality.
Like Brin, Larry Page was born in 1973. His family lived in Michigan, and his father was the first person in his family to get a college degree. Both of his parents were in similar fields as Brin's.
They were the second generation computer science, which at that time was very unusual because computer science was really only developing as a field in the 60s, and here both of their parents were advanced degrees.
They see themselves as on a mission, and that mission, it really does spring from their biographies.
In 2009, Page shared that mission with the graduating class at the University of Michigan.
You know what it's like to wake up in the middle of the night with a vivid dream? And you know how if you don't have a pencil and pad by the bed, it will be completely gone by the next morning. I had one of those dreams when I was 23. When I suddenly woke up, I was thinking, what if we could download the whole web and just keep the links? And I grabbed a pen and started writing. Soon after, I told my advisor, Terry Winograd, it would take a couple of weeks for me to download the web. He nodded knowingly, fully aware it would take much longer, but wise enough not to tell me.
Stanford professor and engineering consultant to Google, Terry Winograd.
Larry just thinks of ways of doing things that you might not expect. Sergey was a lot like Larry. He also was someone who really wanted to think outside the box, to say, if that sounds like it's impossible, let's try it.
It was 1995 at Stanford University when the headstrong overachievers first met.
One of their Stanford professors used to say, well, the difference between the two of them was that Sergey would just burst into my office without asking. Larry would knock and then burst in.
In the 90s, searching the internet was rudimentary, hit or miss, often returning results that were useless. And the process was very slow.
So you typed in your query, you did something else while you waited for it to get the results, then you went back and looked at the results, and most of them were completely irrelevant.
Page and Brin pushed for something better.
Sergey's big interest was in taking all the pages on the World Wide Web and trying to make sense of it, trying to find patterns.
They started to do a record of backlinks, they called them.
Page noticed that behind every web page, there were hundreds or even thousands of other pages that linked to it. It was a eureka moment that would change the so-called information age.
Then they realized that that list of backlinks could be used for ranking. If you have more backlinks, it showed you a better page.
If a lot of other websites linked to a web page, that probably meant users thought it was good.
So the genius was in recognizing that this kind of algorithm could give you the kind of results that mattered the most to searchers.
Page and Bryn had their secret formula. Now it needed a name.
The guys were looking for a great name that was going to capture the grandiose vision that they had and hit upon this giant number, one with 100 zeros after it, commonly known as Google. G-O-O-G-O-L. They discovered it was owned. They said, you know what, let's put a friendlier spelling on it.
On September 15th, 1997, they registered Google as a website. And Page and Bryn dropped out of their PhD programs to focus on attracting funding for their young company. It wouldn't be easy. Investors like Ram Shriram were skeptical.
There were 5 search engines at the time, and so I said maybe any one of them might be interested in the technology. The world didn't need a 6th search engine.
Google just didn't fit into the conventional wisdom of what a website should do, which was to keep users from migrating to another page. Google did the unthinkable. It helped users explore the wider web.
Larry Page and Sergey Brin had a different attitude. They said, we don't want a portal. We want to get the search results to them in a split second.
So one sunny morning, Larry and Sergey were sitting on the porch of a Stanford professor friend of theirs, and Andy Bechtolsheim, one of the founders of Sun Microsystems, pulls up in his sports car, walks up, gets about a 10-minute demo, says, this is fantastic, this is the next big thing, and writes a check on the spot for $100,000 made out to Google Inc.
Stephen Levy is senior writer of Wired magazine.
This is the way things work in Silicon Valley. You know, it sounds astounding that someone would just write a $100,000 check and get you going. But you have to realize that there was a hidden pedigree to this. They were at Stanford. Their professors had done this before. This is a pretty good bet. We might lose our $100,000, but we could win big there.
And at the time, we had no company at all. And in fact, we couldn't cash the check. This, by the way, with no legal documents, you know, none of that stuff.
And even though they had the seed money, they still needed much more cash. No one was buying into Google. They went back to Ram Shriram.
They found 3 other investors, and together we raised enough money to get them off the ground.
Enough money was $1 million, including $250,000 from Jeff Bezos of Amazon.com. Page and Bryn incorporated Google on September 4th, 1998, and they moved into one of those storied garages in Menlo Park. They attracted the attention of 2 well-known Silicon Valley venture capitalists, Michael Moritz of Sequoia Capital and John Doerr of Kleiner Perkins. Both wanted an exclusive deal. Bryn and Page said no deal.
They had the presence of mind at their tender age, they're in their mid-20s then, to say, we won't take money from only one venture capitalist. We want to ensure that neither one of them has control, so we're going to split it.
In June of 1999, Google issued its first press release announcing the investment, $25 million. Bryn and Page now needed to hire first-rate engineers, people who would meet their exacting standards. Chris Sacca is a former Googler.
It was one of the most intense hiring processes of any company in the world. I had somewhere between 12 and 15 interviews over just a couple days.
They created a headquarters they called the Googleplex, offering employee services like free food and childcare, and developed the informal company motto of, "Don't be evil." But Google still wasn't making money.
Larry would come in and I would say, well, how are you going to make money from this? And he would sort of give this little smile and say, well, we'll figure that out.